Welcome to Fortyborn, the limited Lorcana podcast, where a gaming veteran
and a gaming novice
discuss all things Lorcana. With a focus on limited formats, we cover strategy guides, set reviews, and stuff that nobody asked for.
Let's get sweaters together. We should get matching sweaters. It's getting colder.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe.
You know, I will say this, and I don't say things like this often.
Wow.
There is one thing I appreciate about you.
Yeah?
I noticed it recently.
Okay.
So you're from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is basically... Sorry, Skylar. Even Skylar wanted to hear what I was about to say.
Yeah, we were all on the edge of our seat.
Yeah, she was shocked that I would say something kind about you in public.
She busted in to stop it from happening.
Yeah. We can't stand for this. What I was going to say is you're from Minnesota.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So in the Arctic tundra, I know it gets really cold up there.
It does, very cold.
But a lot of times here in Georgia, when it gets cold, people from the north love to tell us how it's not cold here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You complain about the cold as much as we do.
Everywhere I go, yeah.
You're always cold.
I'm always cold. I get it, guys. It is cold.
Well, I appreciate that because when I see Chicagoans walking around in flip-flops when it's 35 degrees here in Georgia, I don't get it. I don't get it.
You know, I don't think there's anything like cool about acting like it's not cold. Like,
I don't know. I think it makes you pretty cool, but
I'm like, up in Minnesota it gets way colder than that. So you must not be cold. You can't be cold.
Yeah, what you can't say that you're cold here.
No.
But I appreciate that you give me space to say that it's cold.
Yeah, I will be back up north pretty soon. So if it is, I'll come back and I'll let you know. I'll let you know if I was wrong and it really is colder up there.
You're going to a Packers game this weekend.
I am. I'm going to Packers game at Lambeau. I'm so excited.
So have you been to a Packers game when it is like covered in snow?
Yes, and it's beautiful.
So I was talking to my dad about this. The Packers is owned by
me.
By people?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, well, it's kind of fake. Like,
do you get like dividends?
No, I don't get any money.
Oh.
They do invite me to a shareholders meeting. I do get to submit, advice from time to time. Like, they'll ask you for feedback on things, but it means nothing. I have a little piece of paper that says I'm a part owner.
That's sick.
Yeah.
They should just look at your fantasy football drafts.
Yeah.
And compile them to be like, oh, this is who we should pick up and trade.
This is who. They should listen to me. They should listen to me.
But so do you? I heard that like the fans will go like shovel the stadium before games.
That's true. Shovel. Yeah, that's true. They'll just like anyone can come in. You bring your shovel. You walk in and you can just shovel the stairs.
And then do you guys go ice fishing before or after the game?
Here's the sick part is that they're so good at it. They're like, you guys, have we got an opportunity for you? Would you like to come shovel the stadium? And we're all like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love that.
Anything for the green and yellow.
Exactly.
That's what y'all call them, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
You know, for sure.
Well, that's an interesting little world that I do not understand. But I'm a UGA fan. I've almost passed out at games from the heat, so I can't really complain.
No, it's different and the same in some levels.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, humanity.
We have another good transition coming up.
It's this one. So today we're talking about how to get better at Lorcana.
Mm-hmm. I don't need this, but for those of you out there who feel like you want to hone those skills, we have advice.
So for those of us who want to improve at the game, this is for you. But Taylor is strictly prohibited from improving at this game so that we can keep the podcast concept alive.
Right. I'm just doing it for the pod, honestly.
Yeah. So how to get better at Lorcana. This is true for limited or constructed. It doesn't matter what format you play. We're going to try to be generic. And I'm sure there are things that we miss. But hopefully this helps you improve your game.
Yeah, this is probably, we're going to miss some stuff. But this is like a general advice for just ways you can improve.
Yeah, in life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can make that connection in your own time. But we're going to go over 5 things, and we'll dive into some more details. And then at the end, we'll end with a fun closing segment.
Nice.
Do you know what that's going to be?
I can't wait.
Well, I forgot to talk about it beforehand, so we'll see what happens. But there's 5 things. I'll say all of them. We'll dive into them more. First is prepare. Second, play with purpose. Third, pay attention to the pros. 4, probability is better than personal experience. And 5, pick a thing and unpack it.
It's a lot of P's.
It is. I was trying to be cute, and I don't know if it landed, but...
The 5 P's.
Yeah, the 5 P's of improving at Lorcana.
Nice.
So first of all, prepare.
Okay.
This is the most important one, but I think most often overlooked, which is just take care of yourself in general.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that this one would resonate with you, Taylor.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on how people could take care of themselves in general?
Wow. I mean, that's a long list. Go to therapy. That's like number one. Just go to therapy.
You want to get better at Lorcana, go to therapy.
Find a therapist. But just, I think taking care of yourself, taking time to actually figure out what you need to improve is important. And listen to people you care about. Like, truly listen to them and don't get defensive. If somebody's telling you something, like in your relationship or a partner or a best friend, and they're like, hey, man, listen to that, because those people probably know. So listen to that and examine yourself.
Did you talk to my wife before coming on here?
Yeah, we'll get to that at the end.
Okay, cool. That's the fun segment at the end. So, yeah, this is, I think, really important. Honestly, I think sleeping is like a super big deal.
Yeah.
That's people don't, sleeping. People have been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of overrated.
Yeah. Overrated?
Underrated.
I was like, wait a minute.
Speaking appropriately or speaking correctly, for me, that's overrated.
Overrated.
Sleeping, underrated.
Yeah.
I just think taking care of yourself when you're playing, like, in a tournament setting, get a good night's sleep, make sure you're eating, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
Drink
all
a lot of water.
good advice. Mm-hmm.
It's just, we're playing a game that requires mental focus and clarity. Doing things to help with that will help you in life and also get better at the game.
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but it is something that I think is definitely worth saying.
Yeah, and like you said, probably overlooked.
Yeah. And these games have a tendency to burn people out, I think. Like, if you're, listening to this podcast, you're probably, like we talked about last week, a bit of a spike. You want to win. You want to get better. And sometimes it can sort of take over and you can get burnt out because it's all you're thinking about. You're playing it. It's what you're doing with your free time. If you're feeling burnt out, I would encourage you to take a step back, take some weeks off, and play some different games.
Yeah.
I think the best way to make sure that you're enjoying Lorcana in the long run is by building community, having friends. Like, it's about more than just playing the game in and of itself.
Yeah.
And it's more than just winning. It's about, I think in general, enjoying the actual act of playing and enjoying being with people as you do so.
Yeah.
And if you're getting burnt out on that, if you're sort of missing that part, just take some time away. I think that's the best way to rekindle your passion for something.
For sure. If you're not having fun, that is the literal sole purpose of this. So take a break from that.
All right, Timmy. The spikes over here are talking. So, up first, prepare, take care of yourself, make sure that you're sleeping, eating, hanging out with friends. And if you get burnt out, just step away and play some other games. Try some other TCGs, play Dungeons and Dragons, play a video game. It's your free time. Be free with it.
Yeah.
If you turn your free time into a secondary job, you're going to burn out.
Right.
Up next, which is probably the most long-term useful, is to play with purpose. So here's what I mean by playing with purpose. Sometimes when you play a game a lot, you can find yourself just going through the motions. And when you are just going through the motions, you're not actually going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
The way to improve is what I'm saying is playing with purpose. Because most people will say, how do you get better? Just play more games. Okay, well, if you're just grinding out games, you're not actually going to get better past a certain point.
Right, yeah.
This reminds me when I got into table tennis.
Tell us.
At the office, I was the best at our office in table tennis.
Wow.
We had a tournament. I beat the CEO. So I became the CEO
That's
of this
how it works,
company.
yeah.
Yes. Trial by combat. Then I went to just a local table tennis league, and I could not score a point. I mean, I literally could not score.
This dude walked in with a headband and a duffel bag, 8 paddles, and he's like, I'm ready to go, and just got the floor wiped.
Not me.
Thinking you were like some table tennis player. He beat the CEO, and you...
No, I showed up without a paddle. And these guys had backpacks with rows of paddles. Super, super nice guys. But that's when I realized if you just do the same things and just play the same games with the same people, you can be the best in that group, but you're going to stop improving at a certain point.
That's great advice.
So if you want to play with purpose, it means trying different formats. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get better at limited, play constructed. If you want to get better at constructed, play limited. It forces your brain to understand the game in different ways.
Yeah.
And it puts you in different situations that you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Also, play different decks. If you're only playing the red-blue item control deck, then try out the aggro deck that you keep losing to, and I promise you, you will start to win more against it. Mm-hmm. Because it helps you understand your enemy. What was that? What's the thing from Know Your Enemy?
Know thy enemy? Know your enemy? What's that from? It's the Bible?
The Art of War? Is that the Bible? That's a fun segment we could do. Is that the Bible? So there's different, I would encourage you to play different decks or different play styles. Like if you just play aggro, try out a mid-range deck, etc., etc. Also, this is really helpful. Try to play against people that are better than you. So if you just have your play group, yes, play with them, have fun. But I would encourage you to seek out higher levels of competition where possible. So if you could go to a different shop that has different people that play, or if you could go to a tournament. Tournaments are a great way to improve because even if you play and you lose every game, there's always these side events that are happening where you can meet people and ask questions and get tips and advice.
Yeah.
It's the best way to improve.
Right.
Also, if you play against people that are better than you and you know that they're better than you, ask them for advice afterwards.
Yeah.
That's one of, I think, the best ways to get better is to be like, on turn 5, when I quested with Lilo instead of holding her back, do you think that was the right call? And then you can talk through that with them and get feedback and advice on maybe lines that you didn't see or mistakes that you might have made. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to ask for advice, ask people that are better than you and ask people that are kind people.
Right.
But I think it's a good way to improve your game.
Yeah, and especially in a game like this where there's probably very likely a few points or moves or just key oh yeah, that happened and that was a turning point in this game, or that happened and that really shifted how things were going. So your opponent, if they beat you, they're going to notice those things and be like, oh, I wouldn't have done this, or be able to help with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I think that information is super useful. And similarly, it requires more vulnerability, but I think that if you have a relationship with this person that's better than you, you can ask them, why did I lose this game? Mm-hmm. And then them being like, that turn where you made that mistake is how the door opened. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes they can say, I can't think of a single thing you could have done differently.
Right.
Sometimes it just comes down to the cards.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And knowing that is helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
So that ties into what I think is maybe the most important piece of playing with a purpose is at the end of a game, ask yourself, why did I lose? And when you win, ask yourself, why did I win? Mm-hmm. So we have a really bad habit, myself included. People that play TCGs all do this. We contribute our losses to randomness, and we contribute our wins to skill. When in reality, both of those things can be attributed to a combination of randomness and our skill. Yeah. So it's very easy to be like, I lost because I didn't draw an inkable card for 3 turns in a row. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe if you had mulliganed better, you would have had more access to more inkable cards in the start of your turn. Yeah. Maybe you had a really greedy keep and you should have mulliganed more stuff.
A greedy keep.
Yeah. What? That's a phrase?
Yeah, it just sounds funny. It's nice. It's fun to say.
Yeah. So after a game, ask yourself, why did I win and why did I lose? And really reflect on that and really try to understand that there's some things that you could have done differently to improve. Mm-hmm. Even if you won, ask yourself why you won and if you could have won a turn earlier.
Yeah.
Or if you could have won in a different way or a better way or a safer way. Trying to view these different things as opposed to every single turn has an optimal choice. Mm-hmm. That's not always true in TCGs. Yeah. Sometimes it is true. Sometimes turns are very clear. But a lot of times our turns have a lot of moving pieces. Yeah. And some stuff can just get mixed up or lost or forgotten. And reflecting afterwards and saying, okay, what just happened? Yeah. That's a good way to improve your game. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to why you won. Pay attention to why you lost. And lastly, in this category, I would encourage you, when you're playing your game, to slow down on your turn and plan out your entire turn before you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So before I take my first game action, I know everything that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because my opponent can't do anything during my turn.
Right.
So I shouldn't quest and then challenge and then do A, B, C, D, and E without planning everything out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because sometimes you'll miss stuff.
Yeah.
And if you think through your entire turn, you'll realize it could have been more optimal if you'd done it in a different order.
Yep.
Now, sometimes if you're going to like draw a card or do something that lets you look at, future cards, like if you have Ursula's Cauldron in play, then that gets a little bit trickier because you can't plan everything out perfectly up front.
Of course.
But if you're going to do some sort of card draw effect, do that first. Almost always.
Yeah.
Because you want to know what your options are before you move through your whole turn.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing in this play with purpose category is when you're actually playing the game, slow down and think about your turn before you do anything.
Yeah. I think this is probably, I mean, you put that in the notes, so it is the most useful, but it's also probably the most difficult thing because it requires you probably to go out of your comfort zone and like really, well, you're analyzing how you're playing, but you're also like having to try a bunch of stuff that you're probably not used to. So like you have a deck that you really love playing that you're good at and you're comfortable with, well, go do a different deck like you said. So I think it requires just more like you gotta force yourself to sit down and actually do this stuff.
Yeah. This type of improvement requires a greater expenditure of energy than just grinding games.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I think that this is the most difficult part, the most difficult way to improve, but I think it's the most important.
Yeah. Long term.
Up first, prepare, take care of yourself. Up second, play with purpose. The third one, pay attention to the pros.
The profesh.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a Lorcana Pro just yet.
No.
Hopefully there will be eventually. But there's plenty of gameplay content on YouTube and Twitch. Now, not all content is created equal, meaning that just because someone has a microphone in front of them, meaning myself, doesn't mean you should listen to them.
I was like, this feels a little close to home.
Meaning myself. Yeah. So not everybody knows what they're talking about. And it's hard to know who does and who does not know. So reset the timer. In Magic, you can just look at people that are like pros, people that are on the Pro Tour or Magic Hall of Famers. They're probably going to be giving you good advice.
Yeah.
If you watch them play the game on YouTube or on Twitch, it's a good way to improve because you can see what they're doing and compare it to what you would have done. Especially on Twitch because you can communicate with them. Like you can literally just message them and say, why didn't you do this, that, or the other? And then you can engage in a conversation with some of the best people playing the game.
Right.
Now, in Lorcana, we don't really know what being a pro is going to look like yet, but there are definitely sources that are coming to the game with a head start. For example, if someone was in the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame, you can assume that they probably have a deeper understanding of TCGs than you do.
Yeah, what's this person's background?
Yeah, knowing their background is a pretty good assumption. Now, that's not to say if someone is new to a TCG, they can't be really good at Lorcana. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're consuming content, there's only so much out there that you can learn from. So I would focus on sources that are reputable or I mean, honestly, you should just listen to whatever you think's fun and interesting.
Yeah.
But if we're strictly talking about improving,
getting better,
make sure that you are listening to people that are really good at the game
and then know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't sit here and listen to 45 minutes of me telling you what cards to play.
No, but if somebody wanted advice on hot dogs, they wouldn't listen to me talk about it.
They know where to go. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I will recommend some things. So there's some really good YouTube content. There's some streamers on Twitch that play on Pixelborn. Social media, there seems to be a lot of good conversation on Twitter. I don't recommend Twitter as a platform, but I do recommend a lot of the conversations that I see on Twitter are really good and really meaningful. And then some podcasts that I would recommend. So there's a lot out there. I'm just going to share what has stuck out to me as content that I've enjoyed consuming that also I think has improved my gameplay. This is not an exhaustive list. I'm mainly just focusing on podcasts and YouTube because that's most of the content that I consume.
Sure.
This is also mostly focused on Constructed because as far as limited goes, I haven't seen a whole lot of limited content going around. But one that I would call out on limited up front is Knives Nerd Corner. He makes some good stuff. He has a cool like draft format that we want to try out. So I like Knive. I think that he makes some good stuff. So you should go check him out if you want to improve at limited. Outside of that, focusing more on constructed, Podcana is good. They have some people that are coming with a lot of varied TCG experience, like from Hearthstone, Flesh and Blood. They cover a lot of meta talks and card evaluations, and their content is really good. So that's a weekly podcast I recommend, Podcana.
Okay.
The Lost Boys is good. That's another competitive podcast. Both of them, Podcana and The Lost Boys, both have YouTube channels as well. And they both do similar things, but focus on different decks, and they have their different preferences. So I like listening to both of those every week for constructed chat.
Okay.
What's the meta? What's good? Card evaluation, deck evaluation, tournament coverage. The Lost Boys ran like an invitational tournament that was really fun to watch, where they got a bunch of big name pros in other TCG worlds to come.
Nice.
As well as people that just won in these little qualifying events that they had.
That's cool.
And all of that is recorded and posted on YouTube, so you can just go watch those people play.
Nice.
And one of the hosts actually ended up winning the tournament.
Oh.
So they know what they're talking about. Like they're
That's
actually
really funny.
They're actually good. Another one, Steadfast. Steadfast has a YouTube channel, really good gameplay. He'll talk about a deck, and then he'll play the deck, and you can see him talk through his plays. So I like Steadfast. Quantum Mercury